Hello everyone, welcome to Tresorit's webinar about GDPR compliance. Today we are going to introduce Tresorit, which is a secure end-to-end encrypted cloud storage and file sync and share service that enables you to handle confidential data in a secure and GDPR compliant way. My name is Tomasz Gruber, Cloud Security Consultant at Tresorit. I have Tim Newton with me as well, who is Regional Manager of Tresorit in UK, Ireland, and Benelux, and member of the Association of Security Consultants. Let's look at the agenda of today. In this webinar, we are going to demonstrate how Tresorit can help you keep your files secure in the cloud in compliance with the EU's new data protection rules. I'll first give a brief introduction to GDPR, then I'll talk about encryption, technical solutions specifically recommended by GDPR to keep data safe. And we'll then demo the various security features of Tresorit that can enable you to comply with GDPR principles of data protection by design and by default. We'll also give you a couple of practical examples that will help you understand how Tresorit can help you avoid data protection violations under GDPR. So what is the GDPR exactly? GDPR, the so-called General Data Protection Regulation, is a comprehensive regulation that unifies data protection laws across EU member states. It sets strict requirements for companies and organizations for the collection, storage, processing, and management of personal data of individuals in the EU. GDPR will be directly applicable from 25th of May 2018 and will have a serious impact on how organizations handle personal data of their employees, customers, business partners, and so on. According to the new rules, companies that suffer a data breach will have to notify the relevant supervisory authority within 72 hours, and also all the subjects of the data breach. Important to note here that GDPR could apply even if your company is located outside the EU. Organizations that process personal data of individuals who are in the EU in order to offer them goods or services will all have to comply with the new rules, irrespective of their locations and irrespective of whether a payment is required for their services or not. Non-compliance may result in significant penalties, up to 20 million euros or 4% of the global turnover of the companies. Tresorit can help you comply with the most complex technical aspects of the legislation. After this brief intro to the GDPR, let's have a look at how Tresorit can help you comply. GDPR recommends encryption to protect personal data from exposure and unauthorized access. However, not all encryption provides the same protection in case your files get into wrong hands. While GDPR does not differentiate between different types of encryption technologies, Article 29 Working Party, soon to be transformed into the European Data Protection Board, describes end-to-end encryption as the strongest guarantee of confidentiality. As you can see, what many cloud providers use is, in fact, not end-to-end encryption. In case of server-side encryption, the cloud provider only encrypts data when it is in transit and at rest. This means that the cloud provider has access to the encryption key and your data, consequently, and data is decrypted when it arrives to the server. Then it can be re-encrypted again. However, if the cloud provider loses control of the key, then you will have a problem. Tresorit, on the other hand, is a cloud provider that you don't have to trust. That's a key consequence of what we call zero knowledge, technology that guarantees that no data goes through our hands in unencrypted form. So in detail, for the strongest protection, encryption keys should be controlled by the end user, and they should not be accessible to the service provider at any point of the encryption-decryption process. This means that the encryption should be done on the client side and not in the cloud. With Tresorit's end-to-end encryption, your encryption keys that unlock your data are stored on the client side on your device. Unlike in-transit or at-rest encryption, even with key management modules, you never encrypt and decrypt your data on our servers. This means that Tresorit can never access the personal data stored in your files. Only you and those who you share with can read them. Let's take a hypothetical example now to demonstrate how end-to-end encryption can help you with GDPR. The company uses a mainstream cloud service provider without end-to-end encryption for file storage. This is our use case now. One day, a hacker steals the password of the system admin and gets into the corporate network of the cloud provider. This has actually happened to Dropbox already. If the cloud provider uses in-transit and at-rest encryption, it holds the encryption keys to your files. This means that the cloud provider's system administrators and those who get access to their servers, so in this case the hackers themselves, and potentially access and read the files and the confidential data in them. If the company used end-to-end encryption like Tresorit's, hackers would not have had the chance to read the files without knowing the user passwords. End-to-end encrypted services like Tresorit do not hold the encryption keys that open your files, nor your passwords in any readable format. So in case of a breach into our servers, your files would be still safe. Why is that? Because hackers would only find files in an encrypted format and would not be able to access any readable format of the files. Because only unintelligible data could leak, which is not considered personal data under GDPR. You would not need to notify the authorities or your customers about the data breach. This way, you can avoid potential fines and also costs of all the notifications and all the extra work that it incurs. Encryption has other key benefits as well. It can basically simplify your compliance process. Let me explain how. According to the GDPR, you, as a data controller, must further process data with third-party processors by protecting data in a compatible way with the original legal basis. With Tresorit, even if you have plenty of personal data in your files stored, practically no personal data is transferred to us. By keeping personal information within your company walls, you don't need to inform or ask for the consent of your clients, staff, or contractors for managing their data in files processed with Tresorit. If you use a cloud provider which does not encrypt the data, you have to make sure that they, as processors, only access data in a compatible way with the original legal basis and takes security measures to protect it. End-to-end encryption can also help you to manage consent compatibility with ease. As Tresorit does not have access to your encryption keys and the personal data encrypted in your files, we are not considered data processors of your encrypted files. Again, this is important under GDPR. This means that if you are audited, Tresorit falls out of the audit scope with respect to the personal data stored in your encrypted files. Hence, if you are checked for compliance, the process is much easier. GDPR also requires organizations to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to develop internal data protection processes with data privacy in mind from the ground up. The various security and data governance features of Tresorit can help you keep control over your data and implement the principles of privacy by design and by default. At this point, let me hand over to Tim, who will demonstrate to you how Tresorit's features address GDPR requirements in actual practice. Tim?
Thanks, Tamas. As you know, GDPR requires that only those who need to work with personal data should have access to it. With Tresorit's permission settings, you can guarantee that personal data is only shared with those who require it, and admins have the right to limit which groups can create, sync, or share Tresors or links. Let's take a look at that. So, my Tresorit screen, I have an HR folder here with some HR personal data. I can share this with specific individuals, and I can immediately revoke anyone's access to this folder should I need to do so. So now I'm controlling who has access to this personal data. The people who can access this folder have no cross-visibility into our other folders. So my HR team does not get visibility into my financials information. So this is critical within GDPR. Furthermore, if I had protected this folder with Tresorit's digital rights management protection, I have even further control over the contents of this folder. In that, for example, in this case, the spreadsheet, if I shared this with somebody as a viewer, the Office commands within Excel to do a save as, a print, or a share would be disabled because that person is only a viewer. Therefore, that will stop this information from leaking outside the circle of people who should have access to it. Even if the other individual managed to copy this Excel spreadsheet to a USB stick and give it to one of their colleagues, Excel would refuse to open it because their colleague did not have the relevant permissions to do that. So that's how Tresorit's control of sharing folders combined with digital rights management can help you comply with GDPR to ensure that only those who have access to the data are those that have access to it. Let's also take a further practical example, because Tresorit has a lot of control features for the Tresorit administrators, such that I can control anyone's device. Again, let's take a look at an example of a data leak. One of my colleagues, this particular individual, has just been on a business trip and they've left their iPad on a train, complete with all of that HR data we were just looking at. As the Tresorit administrator, I'm now concerned that my company is suffering a possible GDPR regulations in the UK, the Information Commissioner's Office. However, with Tresorit, I can come into the settings menu for this individual, I can pick up the devices that they have assigned to Tresorit, and I can immediately unlink this iPad, which will delete any files from this iPad when it's connected to the internet. So now I'm controlling the devices that may be lost or stolen. I can also do this for laptops as well. If he's left his laptop or it's been stolen out of the boot of a car, I can optionally unlink this laptop from the system and optionally delete the synced files from this device. This is also very useful for when an employee leaves your organization. Under GDPR regulations, you need to be very sure that they're not walking out of the door with any personal information that may have come from your systems. So when somebody leaves your organization, you can transfer ownership of their folders back to you, and then you can remotely wipe any devices they have of information on that particular device or across all of their devices. So this is reinforcing the GDPR regulations for staff leaving the organization. I can also further control how these team members can access Tresorit. So this particular team member is in the finance interns group. If I look at the policy group for those interns, I can now enforce things like two-step verification, which again would reduce the risk of a data breach. I can remove mobile devices from this team having access, again reinforcing the fact that we're reducing the GDPR risk of data breaches. I can also insist that this team works in the cloud. I can stop them from sharing folders with other individuals, and I can also stop them from creating their own folders and sharing those with other people. I'd also like to introduce another important feature of Tresorit, which is its link-based file transfer method. With Tresorit, insecure email attachments and other file transfer methods can be easily replaced with Tresorit links and their added control options. You can set a password, download limit, and expiry date to further protect confidential documents. So let's take a look at that. Let's assume that a trainee has sent out a confidential document to the wrong client by email by accident. It's an honest mistake, but it's still considered a data breach under GDPR. In case of an Outlook email, there's not much to do to reduce the risk. Meanwhile, this kind of breach can be avoided with Tresorit's encrypted links. Let's take a look at that now. So I want to email this test document to a colleague of mine. Rather than sending it as an email attachment, I would share via a link. This uploads the file in an encrypted format to Tresorit. I can put some control options in here, like it's going to expire in 3 days, download limit only once. So once it's been downloaded, if anybody else tries to download this link, it won't happen. And I can optionally password protect it. Once I've activated the link, I can then put that into an email or send it via any other channel I want. But if I realize I've sent that to totally the wrong set of recipients or totally the wrong recipient, I do still have control over this link such that I can click on the link itself and revoke it. And that means that when the person receives the email, even if they click on that link, the file will not physically open or download on their machine. So this is a really secure way of making sure that your email attachments are A, sent to the right people, and B, that you retain control over them such that you can reduce the risk of a data breach if the information is sent to completely the wrong person or to a group of individuals who shouldn't have access to that personal information. That's the end of my demonstration. So at this point, I'd like to hand back to Tamas for the final summary and a wrap-up. And thanks for your time and attention today.
Thank you, Tim. So as you said, let's just quickly recap the most important points that we have covered in this presentation. So basically, GDPR will have a significant impact on the way organizations handle personal data of their clients, partners, and employees. In this presentation, we have demonstrated that Tresorit, with its end-to-end encryption and various security features, can help you manage data in a GDPR-compliant way. We'd also like to add that after the 25th of May, when the new European data regulations will come into effect, it will be required that all organizations that store personal data of individuals in the EU sign a data processing agreement, so-called DPA, with their chosen data processors. At Tresorit, we do sign DPAs with our subscribed business customers in respect of the very little data, personal data, that they share with us in an intelligible form, like their own email addresses or their names. Thank you for your attention. I hope this presentation was helpful for getting ready for GDPR. For more info, please visit Tresorit's website or feel free to contact us. Thank you.